Okay, so in this lesson we're going to be looking at formulae. As you can see, I've created a new tab called Creating Formulae, so we've got that and we know we can refer back to this. And we're going to have a look at this as we go through. Now, we've already seen that we can simply put any numbers or any data with any cell. And a cell, as I have said a number of times, can hold one piece of data. That's all it can do. We now want Excel to perform calculations. That's the power of Excel, and all we're seeing at the moment is it holding data. So we want Excel to perform calculations. The way you tell Excel to start doing a calculation, that it's going to do a calculation, the very first thing you put into the cell is the equal sign. Now, the equal sign is an instruction to Excel that anything after this is something it needs to do, not simply store, but something it needs to do. So let's do something really simple. Now the star is where I've held down the shift and the 8 key, and that's equivalent to our multiplication. In computers, we don't have a clear symbol for multiplication, so the star symbol has become the symbol for multiplication. It's better than putting an X there, that is just a letter. So 2 star 3 is the same as 2 multiplied by 3. Now, for making it easier to read, I've put spaces either side of the multiplication symbol, but that is purely for me to make it easier for me to read it. It has no impact upon the computer at all. I could quite easily have put it like that. And say, it is something I am used to doing. You can do it, you could ignore it, you could put a space there and then not bother, or not bother putting a space and do that. The computer doesn't care. I only do it because once your formulae get to a certain size, they can look confusing, and putting spaces in helps. So the equal sign is telling Excel to do a calculation, and then I've followed it by that calculation, and if I press enter, the calculation is carried out, and the cell displays the result of that calculation. 2 times 3 after all is 6. This is where the formula bar becomes useful, because if I go back to the cell, I can still see the 6, but at the top in the formula bar I can see the calculation. It's still there. So I can actually alter the calculation. I noticed I didn't put a space there, and I traditionally do, but again, that's down to me, that's personal. And then I can press enter and it will carry it out. While I'm working on the calculation, it will appear in the cell again, and you can actually work in the cell, but why bother when you've got a beautifully long formula bar? So let's look at another one. There's 2 plus 3. Now the plus symbol, the addition symbol, is exactly what we expect it to be. And we do that by doing the shift and the equals symbol. The equals is next to your backspace key, which in turn is just above your enter key. So 2 plus 3. And by no surprise, we will get 5. Now we've got 2 minus 3. So the computer can do subtraction, and again the minus symbol is exactly the same as we learnt in mathematics, so there's no change there, and that is simply the key next to the equals key, no shift now needed. And if I press enter, I get minus 1. 2 minus 3 is minus 1. And at this point, I wish I hadn't chosen the numbers 2 and 3, simply because we know we're going to end up with a rather nasty fractional number, but that's fine, we can do that. This is division. The division sign we do use in mathematics like this. There is no line with 2 dots that we can use. This is the only division sign that we have. So we can do that quite nicely. And that gives us the horrible fraction that I was talking about. But it's fine. Notice Excel has made it fit into the cell, so it's rounded it up to this 7 there. If I extend the cell, then it will add a few more, and I could always increase the accuracy, but why would I bother? Anyway, we're there. So I can perform simple mathematical functions using a formula, simply using the equal sign and then the maths. My only question is, why would I? After all, I know what 2 times 3 is. It's 6. And I might not want to remember that, but I could do that in a calculator, and then everything would be fine. So why bother? Am I just going to use this enormous spreadsheet simply to do calculations that I could do on a calculator? And obviously the answer is there's more to it than this. But those fundamental calculations are really useful. So what else can I do? Well, now let's put some numbers in, just box standard data. I'm just going to put the numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And what I could do is I can do equals. And I can say equals, and then I can either use the mouse to click on this cell with the 1 in it, and notice what happens. Equals C11. That's the cell reference of the cell that's now got what's called the ants going around. They're just showing us that this is the cell we're talking about, C11. So that is now saying, oh, okay, yep, that's fine, no problems at all. I'm looking at that cell there. And I could simply say plus 3. Oh, that's really exciting. I've said 1 plus 3, and it's told me it's 4. Oh, so what's the benefit of that? Well, let's do the next one. Equals that minus 1. Well, we've got, again, cell reference C12, minus 1 is 1. 2 minus 1 is 1. That's very impressive, but so what? Okay. I'm going to use the arrow key on my keyboard, and I can still go to the cell next. So I can either use the mouse or the arrow keys on my keyboard. It doesn't matter. And what I'm going to do here is multiply that by 5. And then obviously the next one is a division. However I do this, this one's going to look a bit weird, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to go down to this cell here, and I'm going to do equals this cell divided by this cell. So I've clicked on 2 cells, and notice the one with the ants on it is the last cell I clicked on, and it's got a different border, different color. The first border was blue, and that was true in all our cases, and the cell reference in the address in the formula is also blue, but the second cell reference is C14. So the second cell reference is in red, and that is also in red. It's showing us that we can quickly glance at these and see how they fit into our formula. So I'm using 2 cell references. So I'm now doing 5 divided by 4. Let's press enter. 1.25. But so what? Could I not have done those on a calculator? Yes. But what if I change this number? Let's change it to 7. Instantly, the answer in here is changed. This cell is now not doing 1 plus 3, but 7 plus 3. If I change this to 5, I've now got 5 minus 1, which is 4. This cell was 3 times 5, but I could now put 20 in there and find that 20 times 5 is 100. and I can change either of these numbers. Let's change this one to 9, and instantly it changes. And if I change that to 18, I stop getting a horrible number in the cell there, because it's now doing 18 divided by 9. So what I've now got is I've got the capability of recalculating things based upon the values I'm putting in. As these values change, these values change as well. The cell references means it's only looking at the contents of that cell, not saying the number in there is always going to be the number I'm going to use. I can change the contents and the formula will recalculate a new result. That's the power of Formulae, that I can use 1 or 2 cell references or more and calculate a complex series and undertake a complex calculation, and it will constantly recalculate that result as I alter the numbers. Now that's much more powerful than the calculator, where you'd have to keep adding, where you'd have to keep recalculating, re-entering all the data into your calculator. Okay, so we've looked momentarily at creating formulae, and that works really nicely. What we're going to do now in the next video is look at using formulae and the autofill function. See you in the next video.